horrifying scenes in Toronto over Yom Kippur. Gunshots fired at a Jewish school early on Saturday for the second time this year. Local police saying shots were fired from a vehicle at the Bates Chaya Mushka Girls' School at 4 in the morning. No one was hurt and a window was damaged. This coming amid a rise in anti-Semitic attacks in Canada in the past year since the start of the war on the 7th of October in southern Israel, a war started by Hamas on that day. And now for more, it's a pleasure to welcome Michal Cotler-Wunsh, Israel's Special Envoy for Combating Anti-Semitism and a Public Policy and Strategy Advisor. She joins us from Central Israel. Michal, thank you so much for your time. You've just returned from Toronto, where you addressed a memorial commemorating the 7th of October, a year after the Hamas terror onslaught and mass abduction. Of course, Jewish communities globally also remembering the darkest day in Israel's history. Tell us more.
Well, not only remembering, and you're 100% right, standing in grief and in solidarity with 25,000 people in Toronto, Canada, but across the world, communities, Jews and their allies, commemorating October the 7th and committing to combat the anti-Semitism that not only fueled the atrocities of October the 7th, but fuels the continued multi-front attack on the state of Israel. We've just seen another manifestation of that right here tonight. And of course, fuels the tsunami of anti-Semitism around the world, Canada included, that in fact was responsible for the shooting attack for the second time on the Chaya Mushka school in Toronto, alongside what we've seen protests in the street of Toronto. I'm going to say pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah, pro-terror protests and anti-Semitic attacks targeting individual Jews, businesses, students on campus, students at schools, and students and others on the streets and across Canada and the rest of the world.
So to that point, Michal, when you hear Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau saying he's very disturbed by this incident, which of course came as the Jewish community observed Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year, he said on social media his heart goes out to the students, the staff and parents who must be terrified and hurting today, adding anti-Semitism is a disgusting and dangerous form of hate. But what is your sense of how authorities there are prioritizing the fight against anti-Semitism a year since this war here started?
So that is precisely the point. Thank you for that important question, Benita. It is time for much more than words and much more than rhetoric or tweets, frankly, condemning, and that's very important, that hate should be immediately condemned. But leaders need to lead, and they need to do so with action. You know, we've said the word anti-Semitism that fueled the atrocities and fueled the responses to the atrocities. And as you know, there is a definition for anti-Semitism, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition. And Canada, including all of the spaces and places in which we've seen this tsunami of anti-Semitism, and just like all other countries that declare their commitment to combating anti-Semitism, need to utilize that International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition, the result of a long democratic process. And in fact, in Canada's case, my equivalent, the Canadian Special Envoy for Combating Anti-Semitism and Remembrance of the Holocaust, is trying very hard for the last several months to issue a very clear guidebook on the operationalization of that definition so that we can identify and combat anti-Semitism, whether it's by police chiefs, by prosecutors, by university presidents, administrators, school boards, and so on and so on. And so, as I said, the time for words is over, and the time for leaders to lead with action is now.
So, Michal, over and above this call for leaders to, as you say, lead with action, talk us through the role social media is playing in spreading hate and what can be done online to combat this scourge.
So you're 100% right that what happens online does not remain online. And we have seen the tsunami of anti-Semitism utilizing the online spaces, or the business model of the online spaces that polarizes and fragmentizes and enables to actually spread conspiracy myths, of which anti-Semitism is, enables to spread it and peddle it, including blood libel from the Middle Ages to the new strain of anti-Semitism that is anti-Zionism, that compares Israel with colonialist, settler, racist, apartheid, genocidal regimes. And in that sense, the online spaces too, just like the international institutions, just like the university spaces, the school boards, and the corporations, have to be utilizing this critical instrument that I mentioned, the definition of anti-Semitism, because you can't identify something without defining it, and you can't combat it without identifying it, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition. Across every space and place in which we have seen the scourge of anti-Semitism with this tsunami in the aftermath of the October 7th massacre that we just commemorated. And you know, we are about to celebrate or mark Simchat Torah that was desecrated on October the 7th when it was Shabbat and Simchat Torah. We have to, at this moment in time, not only remind Jews around the world, but remind Israelis that this is a war on the state of Israel, on the Jewish nation state. And if we weren't sure of that before, then we can see testament to it, not only to the attack on the streets, but online of all who protect Israel's right to exist, not only Jews, but anyone identified or self-identifying as Zionist is attacked on those social media platforms. And again, the time is now, in a never again is now moment that is, as I said, but one front of the attack of barbarism on our shared civilization. Never again is now.
Michal Cotler-Wunsh, as always, appreciate your insights. Thank you so much for being with us live from Central Israel.
Thank you for having me.